All right, welcome to Plug and Pay. This is a talk show where we invite payroll professionals from all around the world to talk with us about thought-provoking, interesting topics that shape the payroll world. My name is Mark Oliver Fiedler. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Payzar, and I'm the host of the show. We release new episodes every 2 weeks, and you can find those on our LinkedIn page, on our YouTube channel, as well as any of the major podcast sites. So today I'm super excited to welcome on the show Ioana Sirbu. She is the head of European payroll at Tenable. Ioana, great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time. So just to get us started, maybe you tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and how you got to where you are today.
Thank you so much for having me today, Mark. I really appreciate it. I think it's worth mentioning that I didn't choose payroll, but payroll chose me. I used to be an interpreter and translator. I've studied accounting, but then I decided I didn't like accounting. So I went into interpreting and translation and took a bachelor's degree and a master's degree on that. So my direction was to do the exam for the European Commission and being a translator and interpreter there. I failed the exam just for one question. So I had to decide whether, I retake the exam or I just take a completely different direction. I was in Rome at that time. I was living in there. A friend of mine from Dublin recommended me for a payroll job. It was a payroll advisor job. I didn't know what payroll was. I didn't know what HR was at that stage. But surprisingly, I passed all the interviews online and I came to Dublin. So I live in Dublin, Ireland at the moment. When I asked my manager why she chose me for that role, she gave me three main reasons. One of them was the fact that I had a bachelor's degree in accounting. The second, the fact that I speak several foreign languages. And then what she loved about me was the courage and the ambition and, not having the fear of challenges in general. So that was the start. Then every payroll experience that I've been through gave me a completely different, offered me a completely different aspect of payroll and gave me a different experience in general. I'd say I've been through a lot of payroll transformations. That's because I look for challenges and I look for trouble in general. I'm the kind of professional that looks outside of the box and doesn't only do the day-to-day responsibility, but likes to do more. So I've been involved in HR projects, in benefits projects, in accounting projects, project management, and so on. But most of from every experience that I've been through a payroll transformation project. So either a change of payroll provider or a completely transition from regional payroll to a centralized payroll, or transformation in terms of people. So in my last job, I built the whole payroll team from one person to 6 people in the payroll team.
Wow. I love the story of, not really choosing payroll, but payroll choosing you. And it almost sounds like fate happened, right? You were actually trying to go a very different direction. Even though you have an accounting background, you were choosing a very different path. And then I guess you could say payroll was too strong. It just kind of found you and pulled you back in, whether you wanted to or not. But I'm curious about your different experiences, having, as you mentioned, worked on a variety of different payroll transformation projects. Tell us a bit more about that. And I guess particularly I'm interested in what challenges those transformations, changing a vendor, selecting a new payroll partner, have brought with them. And as you've gone through different projects like this, where the challenges typically more or less the same, similar from one experience to the next, or were they all very different in your experience?
Yeah. I think each kind of payroll transformation is different and is a unique project. What I can say, like the main challenges that I've seen and I've been through in the past is the fact that you or your manager decides to do a payroll transformation project, but you don't have a project manager or a project management team assigned to that project. And that project team or manager needs to be in-house. Sometimes that project manager is on the other side if you decide to change a payroll provider, for example. But that doesn't help enough. You need to have an internal structure. Sometimes the responsibility of a project manager falls on the payroll manager themselves to drive the project. But not every payroll manager has the skills or the knowledge on how to run a project. And this is key because when you decide to do a project like that, you need to look into the current processes as they are, and you need to have a clear idea on where you want to go. So you need to look at the future, a future payroll status or direction. You need to understand what's working well, what's not working well. And often, during the project, you lose sight of the direction where you really want to go, or you lose sight of the company's goals. So having a clear idea on the current status, first of all, what are the main issues? And I'll give you an example. Like, it did happen in the past that we changed a payroll provider just because in 3 or 4 countries, we had delays in replies to the queries. I don't think this is a valid reason to actually change or move away from a payroll provider. I don't think that's enough data that you have for your business case, especially when you have, I don't know, more than 10 payrolls and you only take into consideration the experience that you're having with 3 or 4 payrolls. So you definitely need to look into the big picture, have calls with the current provider, understanding where the issues are, and then make a decision like that. So if I was to go back to the previous experiences I've been through in changing payroll providers, I'd say sometimes the companies were looking into the costs, cutting costs. When it's about payroll, you can't cut costs because the payroll is the center of a company. The accuracy of a payslip is crucial for all the employees. Employees can lose engagement by not being paid correctly. So it's important, again, to invest into your payroll department, and it's important to pick the payroll provider based on the company's requirements.
Mm-hmm. The point about needing project management skills, it just resonates with me a lot from conversations that I'm having with prospects and clients, where I think, as you said, on the one hand, it's a skill set challenge, right? Because being a good payroll manager doesn't automatically make you a good project manager. And then let's not forget about the fact that managing a payroll, especially a multi-country payroll, is definitely a full-time job, right? And in many cases, it's more than a full-time job. It takes people's weekends and late evenings to make sure that people get paid properly. And then managing a project like this on top of it is a huge challenge. I can definitely see that. So in your experience, how do you pick up these kind of project management skills and also from a capacity perspective as you're proposing to the organization, hey, we need to change things, we need to go through this transformation? How do you get enough resources set aside so that neither the day-to-day payroll operations, which obviously still need to go on. You can't put those on hold and say, wait a minute, we'll pay you when we're done with this project. So you still need to, fly the old plane, but you also want to, make some changes to it. How, in your project experiences that you've gone through, how were you able to manage this very difficult, spreading, yourself across these different areas of responsibility?
To be honest, Mark, it's a job on top of your job. But again, it depends on the people. If you want to be involved in projects, you will be involved in projects because you have the opportunity. It is an additional work for most of the people. I've seen this with my team members in the past as well. But I'd say the value added that it brings to your experience and to your knowledge and to you as a payroll professional in order to be a complete payroll professional. Because in my view, a payroll expert in general is not the one that only knows how to process I don't know how many payrolls, but it is the project manager on top. It's the process improvement on top of that, is the accountant a little bit, or the HR professional. So if you want to be complete, you just choose to do the additional work on top of a work. You get some skills that maybe you don't get in other jobs. Like I always wanted to be an accountant, and that's why I took my bachelor's degree in accountancy. But I don't think, I can be corrected if I'm wrong, but I don't think in accountancy you would have so many projects as you would have in payroll. So I'm actually happy I took this way and work in payroll, because there's so much to do here.
Yeah. Payroll's constantly changing, right? You're never really done. And I suppose that probably applies to accounting as well. But in payroll, there's changes that you don't really influence yourself either, right? There's lots of external factors that play into things needing to be changed and updated all the time, whether it's regulatory things or other things. So going back to the experience going through these different transformation projects, and you already touched on it a little bit, but I'm curious, were there any particular key learnings that you took away from these transformation projects, these change projects, that you would say, are very important to remember, if someone else is going about starting their transformation? Hey, make sure you think about these key things that you learned maybe the hard way through your experience over the years.
Yeah. You make me think about my previous experience, the most recent change of the payroll provider, literally. We had everything so well structured. We knew exactly what were the issues. We knew what was the direction we were going into. What we forgot about was the stakeholders list. So we realized in the middle of the project that we wanted to do, for example, we wanted the payroll provider to build the GL files for the accounting team, but we didn't involve the accounting team from the beginning. And, we didn't let them know that, look, we're moving away. Well, we informed them we were moving away from the payroll provider, but we didn't inform them that it was in scope since the kind of the budget creation that we wanted to build these files for them. So that was definitely a lesson learned, that, in the future, do make a list with all the stakeholders who need to be involved in the projects. Then another thing that I would say is just a recommendation for other people who are going through these kind of transformational projects: assess implementation costs from the beginning based on the company's requirements. I mean, from my experience and from what I could see from the demos that we've done in the past, the implementations costs vary a lot between, payroll providers. And that's because some of the payroll providers provide a global platform where you can streamline, you can standardize your processes. Some payroll providers provide, just a local platform that you can use just for the upload of the files and maybe communication with the local, with the ICPs, literally. So it's very important. Again, this all relies on the goals of the project and on the company or the team's requirement. If you want to build a global payroll because there's a hyper growth in your company, definitely go for a global platform or a bigger payroll provider. Otherwise, the smaller versions are fine as well. It also depends if you want to do an in-house payroll or an outside or an outsourced, payroll. When you do an in-house payroll, you don't need the knowledge and you need the platform. So implementation costs, are higher because you're paying for the platform. If you opt for an outsourced payroll provider, then the knowledge might be crucial for you. You rely on the payroll providers to give you all the answers, the legal requirements and so on, but you don't rely as much on the platform maybe. So all of this needs to be taken into consideration when deciding the payroll function.
And just on that point between choosing the right, I suppose, skill set that and capabilities that you're looking for with the partner that you're looking to bring on board. In your experience, do you find that in-house versus an outsourced solution? I could see how in a lot of situations you might need some of both, right? It might not be, hey, let's just outsource everything or let's bring everything in-house. In certain countries or certain parts of the organization, you might want to have in-house. In other parts, it maybe doesn't make sense to have your own team run the payroll. Is that what you've kind of experienced in your payroll transformations as well?
We had a plan initially to do the Irish payroll in-house in one of my previous roles. That's because the knowledge was there. So we were just investing literally in the platform. While for all the other countries, we were relying on the payroll providers literally, and we were outsourcing. That was in scope. Eventually, we went for an outsourced solution for all the countries. This is just because we wanted to streamline all the processes. And because we wanted our team to also be able to switch the payrolls between themselves.
So would you say if you want to have for your company a setup where it's kind of a hybrid, in-house and out, does that make the whole transformation that much more complex to really kind of find the right that meets both requirements? Or have you come across situations where that's exactly how it worked out? You had both in-house and outsourced, and maybe at different partners for the in-house versus the outsourced.
I don't have a good answer for this. I think each payroll professional makes the decisions really based on the team's goals and the company's goals. I'd say sometimes in a global payroll function where you have EMEA payroll, APAC, and US and so on, like that's where you might decide to streamline. So you would go for a unique payroll solution rather than doing it in-house. When you do an in-house payroll, you also need the resources because the time that you allocate to that payroll is definitely like you literally need one person probably dealing with that payroll only. So I'm not sure in terms of efficiency if it's worth actually having in-house payroll or if it's worth just outsourcing the whole payroll function. It's case by case, and it depends on the number of payrolls that you have as well. If you have 2 payrolls, UK and Ireland, let's say, I'm just giving an example, obviously you might want to go for an in-house payroll. But if you have over 10, I'd say, in my opinion, the best solution is outsourcing and streamlining.
Okay. I want to pick up on the point on working with different vendors, across your international footprint. In what you've seen working with vendors across different countries, are the local vendors that you've come across typically more or less the same, sort of in terms of their skill and service quality and what they're able to deliver, or do you find that there's very big differences? You already talked a bit about the implementation cost, can end up being very different, but I'm curious, beyond the implementation costs, are there other dimensions where it's a very different thing working with one type of vendor versus another type of vendor?
I'd say like every payroll professional, the payroll providers are different between themselves, and they excel in something. I don't think there's a perfect solution, but there is definitely payroll providers who excel in platforms. And I've seen so many cases where the platforms were so strong. You can do KPIs, you can do metrics, you could do analytics in payroll, in accounting. But there was a lack of payroll knowledge that was forgotten. Also, I've seen payroll providers who have the knowledge, but they lack platforms. So all the solutions are different. Again, it really depends on what you are looking for.
Right. So it takes us back to your initial point.
Yeah, it's like literally going on the market, and you pick the best fruit that suits you, or the best product that suits you, literally.
Right. And on the global vendor side, so obviously there's a active landscape of different global vendors, and I'm sure you've talked to and worked with various different ones. What would be the 2 or 3 things that if you sort of had your wish, your magic wand, and said, I just wish one of these vendors would do this, right? What would be the most important things that you think are today missing in the assortment of skills and capabilities that are out there?
Yeah, the advice that I've been given, like throughout the demos that I've been doing with all the payroll providers, was to I know it sounds like really basic, but it's I think it's very important for us as payroll professionals. There are a few payroll providers who actually add payroll documentation on their websites. I think it's a really cool thing, and it shows the fact that you invest in training, you're interested in learning more, and you're also interested in actually teach the others more, if you want to put it like that. So again, I know it sounds basic, but having some payroll material online, I think it's, for me, if I was to see that, I would say, okay, this is a great payroll provider that invests in the knowledge. Then one other advice that I can give is to consider the client's needs and to be transparent about what they can provide. If their client's requirements is for an in-house payroll, then the payroll platform is what they need, rather than the payroll local knowledge. On the other hand, if the client's need is for local knowledge, then be transparent with your clients and mention from the demos that you're stronger in technology rather than in training or knowledge. Knowledge obviously means investing in people and in training. So allocating the budget towards this goal rather than the platforms.
Okay. And I think those are all very good pieces of advice, and gives me something to think about as a, sort of representing a vendor as well, in terms of especially the piece you mentioned about documentation, knowledge sharing, which we try to do at Payzer, and part of that is this as well, right? But I'm curious, going through a vendor selection process, right? Let's say you've gone into made the decision as the team that the current vendor is really not cutting it anymore. We're going to go out and try to find new vendors, and then of course you're going into the beauty contest, and you have demos and presentations from different vendors. How hard or easy is it to spot sort of, hey, which vendors are the ones that are able to deliver a better service than maybe others? And like you said, maybe that's not even a very fair way of representing, because every vendor has their strengths and their weaknesses. But you know what I mean, like cutting through kind of the sales, the sales smoke and mirrors, so to speak, and being able to say, okay, let's drill down, and these are the things that you really need to ask about, drill into, to understand, is this vendor a good fit for the needs of our company?
Yeah. One of the questions that I ask each payroll provider after we do the demo is to give me a constructive feedback from their clients. The reaction is always different. Some would just say they wouldn't share. So again, transparency is very important. Some of them would actually say, oh, look, our clients say we should invest more in our training. Mm-hmm. So that's where I understand, okay, what are the challenges, what are your weaknesses, you're accepting them, and you also want to improve them. So I do appreciate, again, when payroll providers are very transparent, and they say, exactly what's their status, literally.
I like that. Yeah, I think that's very clever. It's like when you do a job interview and you ask the candidate, tell me a bit about what are your strengths and your weaknesses. People always have a hard time talking about their weaknesses, but if you say I don't have any weaknesses, or you sort of skirt around the question there, it's also quite telling, right? So I like that, asking the vendor about what are the areas that you need to improve. What's the sort of constructive feedback that you get from your customers? It's a very good one.
Yeah. By knowing that, literally, I know what kind of experience they're offering to their clients. So it's easy to spot if they say they don't have any constructive feedback. It's really easy to realize, okay, there's like I literally not gonna go for that payroll provider because there's no transparency.
Okay, note to self: always have an answer for what do we need to improve on. Very good. So look, you've clearly seen and done a lot of different types of projects in the global payroll space. In recent years, or even looking forward, are there any trends, any developments that you're particularly excited about, whether it's on the vendor side or trends that are happening in the organization, the customer organization itself?
I think, we talked a lot about, the payroll transformation and about, changing the processes, changing the payroll providers and so on. But I would take a few minutes just to talk about people as well. So, the payroll professional role changed so much over the years. I remember the payroll clerks, a while ago. I think those evolved so much. And again, it depends on each person to think outside of the box and just, to want to do a little bit more on top of your job. but there's so much in payroll. Like I've been involved in HR projects, changing HR systems. I've been doing benefits as well, because benefits sometimes falls under payroll. I've been doing accounting as well. So it depends on you how open you are, but the payroll professional can do so much. And I'll just say, because I've just mentioned the standard kind of approach, where payroll does a little bit of HR benefits and so on. But I'll say, if you want to get involved even in editorials and write articles for different magazines, there are so many opportunities outside. So if you have the skills, definitely I encourage everybody to do it. It's a great exercise. There's webinars that can be done by payroll professionals. And, lately I discovered one of the things that I like the most in payroll, which is people and coaching and mentoring. I think as a payroll lead, I like more the payroll lead than the payroll manager kind of job title. A payroll lead is a payroll lead to create other leaders. Our job is to mentor, is to train, is to coach other people to help them grow. Career progression is very important for all of us, not only in payroll, but also outside of payroll. It depends. It relies on the payroll professional, but also on their manager to guide them throughout their payroll experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just on that point, so if you're running a payroll department, in the kind of manager that is basically your supervisor, whether it's the head of finance or accounting or HR, what's their kind of role in enabling your skills? How can they help to advance a payroll professional? Because payroll is a very specific area, right? Are there any specific things that someone who's not working themselves in the payroll function, maybe it doesn't have the same appreciation for the more technical functional skills that are required, but are there other things that they can do to help you advance in your career?
Definitely. So you actually touch one of the important things. Some people have the technical skills in payroll. Some other people don't. Like I've tried to be technical and I've learned the job, but it has always been kind of an effort, not because I can't or I don't have the skills, but because I like it and I don't love it. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was more kind of the project management, or kind of the strategy, the planning, the leadership, seeing the full picture. The role of a mentor is definitely the continuous learning. Always train your people as much as possible and based on their skills. I've had team members who were very good at the technical parts, and they wanted to go, they didn't want to be accountants, but they wanted to be payroll accountants. So obviously we improved those skills specifically because that's what they enjoyed doing. But I had other team members who were really interested into project management. So in that case, obviously, I offered them the experience by involving them and letting them lead the projects. But I involved in the training again as well. So doing a project management training, I think it's important for a payroll professional in general. So that's kind of the orientation that you can give, but also, joining all the payroll organizations, that gives you a lot of trainings, orientation. I think also having a mentor is important. I was so lucky to actually find my mentor in payroll, which is Max, one of the people you had. I think he was the first one. He was our first guest, episode number 1. Yes. But Max actually helped me and guided me throughout my career and pushed me out of the comfort zone always, which is the right thing to do as a leader.
Yeah, I think it's a great example because you can obviously train people, lead people, and mentor people within the specific company, within your own company context and organization. But the example of Max being your mentor, I think, is a nice one because it shows that that kind of role and sharing your knowledge and experience and passion transcends the company boundaries, right? And it's actually something that I find in payroll is incredibly inspiring, that payroll professionals are, always, in my observation at least, always willing to, sit down with others, share their perspective, share their experience. There's a lot of community spirit there, right? In the payroll space, it's like a family, right? Because it is hard, it's complex, and you can't know everything, and it's a constant opportunity to share and learn again from others, from their experience and their specific skills. So I think that's a great example. And as you mentioned, there's some nice associations, networks out there that you can make use of in order to get connected and get exposure to other people. Great. Well, listen, I think that's a good way to kind of end on the question and answer part. What we like to do before we wrap up is something that we call the lightning round. You might have seen it in one of our previous episodes. We do a quick fire round of questions, and you just answer whatever comes to mind, and we'll just jam through these questions. Yeah? You ready for it? All right. So first question is, when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A psychologist.
Wow, that's very different. Yeah, but I guess you probably still get to use some of your psychologist skills in a payroll context as well, right? Because there's always as you talked about before, right? There's sort of functional, technical parts to the role, but there's certainly also the good old people to people, personal dimension to it as well. So that's nice. I like that. Second question is, what are the 3 essential skills, qualities that a good payroll professional needs to have?
I actually mentioned it before as well, like great coach and mentor, thinking out of the box, and a problem solver. As a payroll manager, I felt like I was a problem solver 70% of my time.
Yeah, because you constantly get new things thrown at you, right? So you have to just figure out how to solve for it. What gives you most satisfaction as a payroll professional?
Helping other payroll professionals achieve their career goals.
Okay, so sharing the passion and
sharing the passion for payroll, and helping them grow, because some of the professionals in general, they think their payroll world is just the payroll processing,
yeah,
or knowing as many countries as you can,
right.
That's not all of the payroll world. There's so much outside.
Yeah, it's very multifaceted type of role, right? As you said, so you've managed to get exposure to HR and benefits and finance and accounting. So, but I guess you need to be open to that and push yourself to explore that. If there was one thing that you could change about your job as a payroll manager, what would that be?
I'm sorry, I'm going to be repetitive, but I think I'm talking in general and not about my current role, but being more kind of concentrated again on training other people, and making them understand as well what are their skills. If they are better at payroll, like technical, or if they are better at the project management side or any other side of the payroll. But I think that's really being more concentrated on a career advancement and coaching rather than on payroll processing. Definitely, we hire the best people who know payroll. We choose payroll providers who have the knowledge. So our responsibility as payroll leaders, again, is to create other leaders. It's not to do the processing or getting involved in processing.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like that. You know, pass it on, right? Pay back some of the learnings that you've received and pass it on to the next generation of payroll leaders,
Yeah.
right? Is obviously very important. Well, very cool. I think that's it for this episode. I don't know if you have any other shout outs, anything that you want to leave people with before we wrap up?
Not a shout out, but again, I'd say, because we talked about payroll transformation in general, if you do a payroll transformation project, like a change of a payroll provider, for example, always think about, again, current processes and future processes. Take into consideration the teams and the company's goals, and think about the people and the resources that you need for this project. Think about the experience you would like to offer to your team as a payroll manager or to your employees after the implementation, rather than thinking about the budget where possible.
Yeah, sometimes that's hard, but I think those are very good points. And look, I think all of the things that you shared here, Ioana, over the last 30, 40 minutes, it has been incredibly valuable advice, really great insights. Clearly your extensive experience in working in challenging but inspiring different environments shines through with everything that you shared. I love your passion for passing on that knowledge. And so I suppose I'd say to anyone who's watching this, now you know where you can go. If you want to, get mentorship and advice, find Ioana. You'll now get bombarded with requests probably from people that, want to learn from what you've gone through. But I think that's what it's all about, right? That's what makes payroll, better step by step. We all have so much to learn from each other, so I think it's great. Anyways, look, thank you so much for taking the time for talking with me today. That's it for the episode for today. We post these episodes on our various different channels, YouTube, LinkedIn, the podcast sites. If you want to find out more, go there. Please give our episodes a thumb up, subscribe if you like what you've heard. Make sure you subscribe so you can get future episodes, notifications about future episodes as well. And I think that's it for today. Again, thank you everyone for joining us and tuning in, and we'll talk to you again in the near future. Take care.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.